Welcome to Fix It Home Improvement, covering projects that every homeowner should know and great products for home and garden.
Hi, I'm JC, and this is where we share weekly home improvement tips. I'm here with my co-host, Cindy.
Hello, JC.
Hi, Cindy. This week, we're going to be talking about construction adhesive, and we'd like to thank Marianne Orkelis for liking and sharing the podcast. And this week, September 29th through October 3rd, you can download our 9th book for free on Amazon. It's called Home Improvement Solutions, What Every Homeowner Should Know, Book 9. And if you're listening to this after October 3rd, you can download it for $1.
Exciting. One
of the first synthetic adhesives was created in 1869. And in 1894, a Canadian inventor patented a ratcheting caulk gun. It had a cylinder with a nozzle on the end. You could remove the nozzle, fill it with a soft putty, and it was connected to a handle and a rod, very similar to modern caulk guns. It's 1894. In 1964, Mako Adhesives developed a construction adhesive and named it PA-12. So they tried to market it for a couple of years, and they finally decided to change the name. They thought it might be better, so they called it Liquid Nails in 1968, and it was the first construction adhesive in a caulk tube. Construction adhesives are thicker than a standard glue. They come in squeeze tubes, cans for spreading with a trowel, or caulk tubes. And most homeowners are going to be using construction adhesive in a caulk tube for most projects around the house.
Right.
A 10-ounce tube is the most common size, and it fits in a standard caulk gun. And there are 28-ounce tubes for bigger projects. I spoke to Liquid Nails, and they said there are 3 main types of construction adhesives: solvent, latex, and a polymer-based. The solvent or rubber-based formulas contain resin, solvents, and additives for what they're designed to bond to. They're immediately resistant to water, they'll bond to metal, they dry by solvent evaporation, and they develop tack very quickly.
What does that mean?
So tack is how quickly it forms a bond. If something has low tack, it can be repositioned. If it has high tack, it's going to bond very quickly. With the solvent-based construction adhesives, they can't be used on some surfaces. It may stain granite or marble. It can be a fire hazard under some conditions, and they're restricted in some parts of the country. Latex-based construction adhesives contain latex, fillers, and additives, and they dry by water evaporation. They're safer to work with indoors. They're low VOC and compliant in all states. They bond quickly to porous material, and they have a good work life, even in hot weather.
What is work life?
So work life is how long you have to move the adhesive around, or how long after you've applied it to a surface before it starts to harden, and you either won't be able to spread it properly, or it won't bond to another surface that you're pressing against it, or it can mean how long it takes to cure. Polyurethane or polymer-based construction adhesives contain polymers, fillers, and additives, and generally they're curing from moisture in the air or from the material that they're being bonded to, but they can cure by chemical reaction. They're waterproof, they work on a wide range of material. Most won't stain marble or granite. They cure quickly, and most are VOC compliant, but you should always check the label when you're working inside your house.
Okay.
Construction adhesives can add strength to a project rather than just using fasteners alone. And for some projects, like if you're installing a tub surround, construction adhesive is the main bond for your installation. Some construction adhesives can stain or bleed through some plastics or melt material, like rigid insulation. So it's important to read the label on the adhesive that you're picking and see what surfaces it's rated for, and then always read the installation instructions on products, especially like tub surrounds, backsplashes, countertops, and rigid insulation.
Okay.
For insulating concrete basement walls, you may be using expanded polystyrene, EPS, or extruded polystyrene, XPS. You want to check the adhesive that you're using, make sure it's compatible to the foam board that you're using, and check the installation recommendations for your product. But a common method is to run a 1/4 inch thick bead of your construction adhesive from the top of the wall to the bottom and then space those beads about 12 inches apart. Or you can put the adhesive on the back of the foam board. Some pros like to use a wavy bead on the wall because it's fancy. And then you're going to push your foam board in place very firmly. Try to give it a slight twist and then butt each piece next to each other. You're going to seal the seams either with seam tape or expanding foam. And for these indoor projects, I would always be looking for low VOC.
Right.
Liquid Nails has a latex-based VOC-compliant construction adhesive. It's called Projects Construction Adhesive. And this can be used with foam board. It's recommended for styrofoam board, Foamular rigid foam boards, and Insul pink foam board, along with other materials, and foam back tub surrounds. It's certified by the UL environment, so that's Underwriters Laboratory. It meets the Green Guard Gold standard, and there's 2 tiers of these Green Guard certifications. Green Guard certified means it meets this third-party level VOC chemical emission standard, so it means it's safe for indoor air quality.
Wouldn't that be easier to say?
Green Guard Gold is an even lower emission standard, and this is set for children and the elderly. Children are much more sensitive and at higher risk of health problems from a buildup of these chemicals in the air. I spoke to Gorilla Glue, and they have a heavy-duty construction adhesive that can be used on foam board and tub surrounds, and it's a 30-second fast grab adhesive. And this isn't going to foam like their original Gorilla Glue. It's low odor and VOC compliant for indoor use, and it can be used outside. One thing they said with their product is you need to unscrew the nozzle and cut the nub off the tube right above the first thread, because that's what's sealing the adhesive. You can't just cut the tip of the nozzle and try to puncture it. So with most construction adhesives, you would cut the tip to the size opening you want or the size of the bead you want. Then you would take either a long nail or the puncture tool on a caulk gun and pierce the foil that protects the construction adhesive.
Right.
So this construction adhesive can also be used to hold large mirrors in place. If you are installing a mirror, make sure to check that the construction adhesive is rated for mirrors. You don't want to damage the backing of your mirror. Some companies are going to have a specific construction adhesive just for mirrors. Loctite, it's Loctite. They have mirror construction adhesive. And Liquid Nails has a mirror construction adhesive. It's heat and steam resistant, and it won't damage the reflective backing. To install a large mirror, Liquid Nails recommends that you use 1/2-inch thick globs of the adhesive, 2 to 3 inches wide, and then put these globs every square foot of the mirror. And then for large mirrors, use a J-channel or L-hangers on the bottom of the mirror for support. And then you're going to press this against the wall. And you don't want to seal the edges, and that way it cures properly.
So is glob a technical term?
Yes. If you're installing lightweight crown molding made out of polyurethane, PVC, polystyrene, or a composite, check the installation instructions for the recommended adhesive. If you're using construction adhesive, latex or water-based construction adhesive works with most of them, but check the label for compatibility so it doesn't melt your molding. Polystyrene is very lightweight, easy to cut and install, so if you're putting up crown molding, you just glue it together and then glue it to the wall and the ceiling. You just push it in place and it sticks. And then you would caulk the edges and paint it. You don't need any nails. It's up high, so it looks great.
Cool.
Yeah, it's really easy to do. Traditional wood trim can also be held in place with small dots of construction adhesive or
globs.
Yes, always use small globs or a thin bead. This is great around cabinets or areas that would be hard to nail. And I would get a fast grab formula. It's going to hold it in place while it cures. Or you can use a couple of nails. And that way you're going to have less touch-up or dented trim, especially if it's a difficult area to get into.
Okay.
Construction adhesive is great to reduce the amount of nails you would use to secure wainscoting, paneling, or chair rail. For panels, you'd run a bead from the top to the bottom every 12 inches or so, and then push it firmly into the wall. Then you're just going to hold it in place with a couple of nails. Gorilla Glue recommends the Gorilla Heavy Duty Construction Adhesive for projects like this. It's fast grab, and if any of the adhesive squeezes out, you wipe it off immediately with a dry cloth, and any adhesive in the seams can be painted, and it's also sandable.
Cool.
I spoke to Sica. It's S-I-K-A. They have a product called Sica Bond Ultimate Grab. It's a polyurethane construction adhesive that's instant grab. It works with most materials, and they say it can eliminate the need for nails on many projects. It's low VOC for indoor use, and they had a demo of this at one of the last hardware shows I went to. They glued 2 pieces of wood together with a thick bead of this adhesive end to end, and it flexes without cracking or pulling apart. It's pretty wild. They say it's great for exterior projects with movement from hot and cold weather.
Okay.
Construction adhesive is good behind medicine cabinets, kitchen cabinets, and under countertops. It's going to add strength to your fasteners. And when I spoke to Liquid Nails, they said projects with their Fuse-It all-surface construction adhesive is 2 times stronger than just with fasteners alone. And their Fuse-It is spelled F-U-Z-E, capital I-T.
Tricky.
If you're replacing drywall or building partition walls and putting up drywall, construction adhesive is going to reduce the amount of screws or nails you need. It'll reduce pops and help deaden sound.
Would you get pops if you're using screws in drywall?
You're definitely going to have less pops with screws compared to nails, but wood can shrink over time and cause pops. Or the screw, many times you're actually going to have it pull through the face of the drywall if the wood moves, especially if you don't recess your screws properly. So
what did I ask? Didn't you answer it?
Yes, you can get pops with nails and screws. If you're putting up drywall on wall studs and using construction adhesive, cut the tip so you have about a 1/4 inch opening. Run a continuous bead on the top plate and each stud and also on the bottom plate. And where 2 sheets of drywall will hit the center of a stud, you want to use a wavy zigzag pattern. And only add as much adhesive to the area that you're going to be working on so it doesn't skin over before you put up your drywall.
Okay.
I went on a couple drywall forums and...
Why?
This is just great reading. Some pros said they like construction adhesive. It reduces the fasteners they use by up to 50%. One drywaller said he cuts the tip of the adhesive tube on each side, creating a V shape on the nozzle. He said it lays down a thicker bead, it goes on easier, and it covers up imperfections on the wood better. Another drywaller said he cuts the tip flat and he holds it at an angle, and he said that gives him a thicker bead.
Interesting. You can use this on metal studs too, right?
Right. The fasteners required on drywall can vary depending on your local building code, but in general, for securing drywall, you would space your screws 12 inches apart around the perimeter and then 12 inches apart on the studs, or it's called in the field. If you use construction adhesive, the spacing is 12 inches for the perimeter and then 18 to 24 inches in the field. A couple pros recommended 48 inches in the field, and some said they only add 1 screw to each stud in the center, making it much faster to compound. Construction adhesive is also great for drywall on your ceiling, especially if you aren't really good at recessing your screws properly to hold your drywall up. If you're putting down subfloors, construction adhesive will help prevent squeaks and noise from wood moving.
Really?
And yeah, it's great. And for outdoor projects like decking, handrails, and fences, construction adhesive will help keep wood and composite material from expanding and contracting and loosening up. Especially for handrails, it's going to add strength to your fasteners. I spoke to Quikrete. It's Q-U-I-K-R-E-T-E. They have an advanced polymer construction adhesive. They say it will permanently bond concrete, brick, and masonry, and can be used for stone veneer. Quikrete recommends using nitrile gloves when working with construction adhesives.
Shouldn't you spell that?
Nitrile, N-I-T-R-I-L-E. So nitrile disposable gloves are stronger than most other materials. They have a high resistance to punctures and chemicals. Quikrete recommends using construction adhesive for retaining walls and caps. It's going to bond them in place. And you can use construction adhesives to hold together landscape bricks, blocks, and timber. Sica, S-I-K-A, has a hardscape construction adhesive. It's resistant to the freeze-thaw cycle. It's paintable, stainable, sandable, and it flexes. Loctite has a landscape construction adhesive, and Gorilla Glue said their heavy-duty construction adhesive is good for landscape material. It's 100% waterproof, and it fills gaps. And gap filling is a good quality to look for on the label when you're working with landscape material. If you're building a shed, also construction adhesive is great for roof sheathing, the subfloor, the siding, especially if you're in an area with high winds. It's going to help keep your roof on.
That's important.
You can use construction adhesive to repair vinyl siding, to hold it in place. You can use it to put your house numbers on your house. And it also holds fence pickets together, rather than over time that wood expands and contracts. Or if your screws rust out, it's going to help hold them in place. Some top-rated construction adhesives you're going to find in home centers and hardware stores. Quikrete, Q-U-I-K-R-E-T-E, Liquid Nails, Gorilla, Loctite, Sica, O-S-I, it's just the letters O, S, and I, and DAP, just the letters D, A, and P. With some thick construction adhesives, you need a caulk gun that's more powerful. I spoke to Dripless, it's D-R-I-P-L-E-S-S. They make caulk guns, and they said the power of a caulk gun is measured as thrust ratio. Caulk guns commonly have a range from 5-to-1 to 26-to-1.
That's a big range.
A low thrust ratio of 5-to-1 is going to dispense more product per trigger pull, but it's harder to squeeze the trigger, especially with a thick material like an adhesive. 26-to-1 is very easy to squeeze, but not a lot of the product comes out. So they recommend a thrust ratio of 18-to-1 for most construction adhesives.
Okay.
For homeowners, they recommend a dripless function to stop the flow of adhesive for more control, and then when you're using caulk, so you have more control of the caulk.
Right.
They also recommend a clean-out rod that's attached to the gun to open the tube and clear blockages, a rotating barrel when you use caulk, so you have a consistent bead around corners. I've never used a caulk gun with a rotating barrel. Sounds pretty cool. They said their ETS 3000, which has an 18-to-1 thrust ratio, is really good for construction adhesive.
Cool.
I spoke to Newborn. It's N-E-W-B-O-R-N. They also make caulk guns. They recommend a thrust ratio of at least 10-to-1 for construction adhesives. They said look for a gun with a built-in spout cutter and a seal puncture tool, so you don't need to carry around a blade and a nail when you're working with them. They like a drip-free caulk gun for thin material like caulk, but they prefer caulk guns with a thumb release on the back, so it keeps pressure on the construction adhesive and it keeps it flowing for large projects. They recommend their Model 250. It has an 18-to-1 thrust ratio for construction adhesives. And Newborn and Dripless, they both make top-rated caulk guns.
Okay. Do you have anything else to add?
When you're comparing products, read the labels. You want to pick the right product for your project. For indoor air quality, look for low VOC and get a quality caulk gun. It's going to make the job a lot easier.
Let's wrap this up.
You can subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, CastBox, Himalaya, or your favorite podcast app.
If you enjoyed it, please leave us a review.
You can check out our home improvement videos on our YouTube channel, Fix It Home Improvement.
And you can subscribe to that as well.
Download our books, Home Improvement Solutions, What Every Homeowner Should Know, books 1 through 9 on Amazon.
If you enjoyed it, please leave us a 5-star rating and review.
You can email us at fixitpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow Cindy on Twitter at FixItCohost, and you can follow us on Instagram, Fix It Home Improvement.
Thank you for listening.
Talk to you next week.